I'm filming this during finals week, so I'm going to be talking kind of quietly just in case anyone in my building is trying to focus on studying or actually taking a final, because all of them are at home now because the world is ending. So if it's a little hard to hear, sorry, but I'm trying to be courteous just in case. I've never had any issues hearing any of my neighbors, but you know, I want to be safe. So during the quarantine, Carrie, Fletcher, and Oliver Ormson have been posting videos every day on each of their channels. They'll do a video in the morning on Ollie's channel, a video at night on Carrie's channel. I've been really enjoying them. And a few days ago, at the time of me filming, they did a video talking about theater mishaps. And I did a decent amount of theater when I was in high school. So I was like, I've got stories. Immediately, the first thing that comes to mind when I think about theater mishaps, I was in a production of a show called The Transition of Doodle Pequeño. And a big part of that show is that there's an orange tree. And at one point, my character and another character had to shake the tree to get all the oranges to fall off. And during one of the performances, we shook it a little bit too hard. The tree just snapped in half. And me and David, the guy I was doing the scene with, spent a few seconds trying to balance it to see if we could make it work. Very quickly realized that it wasn't going to work. I remember just turning to him and being like, just put it down, just put it down. And we just placed it on the ground and then booked it off stage. Another story that immediately comes to mind. This was not a goof that I was involved in, but I did witness it. I was in a production of The Life and Death of Julius Caesar, the Shakespeare show. I was sitting backstage because I had a scene coming up at some point, and the guy who was playing Brutus was also sitting backstage. He had 2 scenes until the scene where he was supposed to be on, but he thought he only had 1 scene until the scene he was supposed to be on. So the scene ends and he starts walking on stage, pretty much immediately realizes he's not supposed to be on stage. He just stopped in his tracks and just slowly backed off. I lost my mind. I was laughing so hard. Keeping things in the Shakespeare realm, I was in a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. He's gonna kill me for telling this because he felt so bad about it. There's a character who like really excitedly stands up, and so when he stood up he would slap his legs. I was sitting on one side of him and there was somebody else sitting on the other side of him. And so the director, during one of the rehearsals, was like, maybe it would be funny if instead of slapping your own legs when you stood up, you slap the legs of the people next to you. And so that's what he did. And then one time we were running that scene and I was wearing shorts, so my bare legs were exposed. He slapped me a little too hard and left a handprint on my leg. Speaking of pain, I was in a production of Charlotte's Web. And you know, sometimes directors like make choices for how they want this story to be presented. So for this particular show, the director wanted it to be like a group of children on a playground were telling the story. We used a lot of like toys and stuff like that. At the end of the show, Charlotte lays a bunch of eggs and then they hatch and they run off to go live their lives. And so to symbolize that, the director wanted us all to blow bubbles to be the spiders. He didn't want us just like blowing them into the audience. He wanted us to look up and blow the bubbles upwards. So gravity exists, but we're all looking up and blowing bubbles, and the bubbles are floating back down onto our faces, basically. And every single time we ran that scene in rehearsals, during shows, every single time we ran that scene with bubbles, there was at least one person who had a bubble pop directly in their eye. At least once it was me. Maybe 2 or 3 times it was me, but at least once it was me, and man, does that hurt. I don't know if you've ever had a bubble pop in your eye. It sucks. I had forgotten about this story until this moment. This is another story of me getting hurt. I don't know why all these stories are about me getting hurt. This was a student-written thing, so I'm not gonna go into the details of the show. They don't really matter. Basically, at one point, I was supposed to run off stage. But we had, I don't really know what to call them. A lot of theaters have them. They're like wooden boxes. For this particular show, they were painted black, just so that we could use them as kind of easy set pieces for the show. It was a student written thing, so it wasn't, you know, a big production. I go to run off stage, the wings are dark, and the boxes are painted black. So there happened to be a box sitting directly in the path that I was running, and I didn't see it because it was dark and the box was black, and so I just ran directly into the box and just like slammed my shin into it, and it immediately bruised. I think I might actually have a picture, so if I do, I'll insert it. I remember that was the last thing we were doing in rehearsal before getting to go home, and I lived like 3 blocks away from the school, and so I took that picture probably like not even 10 minutes after hitting my leg, and the bruise was already that bad, and it only got worse. I don't have any pictures of it at its worst. That's the only picture that I have, but yeah, that hurt. And then to close it off, this also is not an onstage story, but I love this story. My senior year, I was a theater board director, which meant that I was in charge of some of the crews for all the shows. So one of the directors at my high school was, he could be pretty difficult to work with sometimes. And you know, kids backstage, they're gonna talk sometimes, and if they're afraid of the director, that might be a topic of conversation that comes up. So some people backstage have been saying, you know, that they thought he was mean and that he was hard to work with and things along those lines, and he happened to overhear this conversation. Me and the other managers are in the back by the sound booth changing out the batteries in the mic packs so that everybody got a fresh set of batteries before going on stage that night. And the director walks up to us and he goes, "Hey managers, can I talk to you for a second?" So I was just backstage, and I heard some people saying some pretty mean things about me, you know, saying that they thought that I was like mean or scary or that I was hard to work with, and I'd really appreciate it if you would talk to your crews and get them to stop talking about me in that way, because I'm a fucking nice person. And all of us were like, we did not know how to react. I think we were like, yeah, okay, we'll talk to them. But all of us were so scared in that moment, especially because this was high school, and I can't speak for every high school, but at my high school, teachers didn't swear. At least not like big swears, like maybe you'd hear a damn every once in a while, but they certainly were not dropping F-bombs to students. And so all of us were so scared in that moment, but I think about that all the time. Like, that's just, that sentence is so funny to me. Just, I'm a fucking nice person. Terrifying in the moment, but so funny to look back on. Anyways, I probably have more stories, but I can't really think of any off the top of my head, so I'm just gonna wrap this up. What does Ollie say at the end of the Good Morning videos? I think it's like, be safe out there. Don't slam your shin directly into the corner of a wooden box.